Welcome back to 1834 Restoration House.
It is dark 30 here at the Old Victorian, and we're upstairs in the sewing room. And we have some really exciting things that are going on around here, and we'd like to share those with you. But first, why is this window being propped up?
Today's program is sponsored by the generous support of our patrons. Your support helps to further our historic preservation efforts. For more information, visit patreon.com/1834 Restoration House.
Well, the answer is we lost another sash cord up there, and this room is now officially desashed. We only have one working cord left, and it's not sufficient to hold this window up. But we do have some sash cord that we picked up, and we'll make those repairs. But that's a project for another day. Hi, love.
Hi.
You remember what came in the mail yesterday?
Oh, yes. Let me put this away.
Yes, please. You guys are going to get to see this right along with us for the first time. This package has never been opened. We're going to open it with you.
How exciting.
All right, let's see what's in there.
An envelope.
Oh.
Well, after that disappointment, I went to check the mail for yesterday's mail.
Yeah?
Guess what? The one we really want.
That's the package we were looking for. All right. All right, let's open this thing up and see what we got. It's kind of hard to tell which end is which here, but let's see. This is exciting stuff.
We were so busy yesterday, we didn't check the mail. The package was on the front porch, so this one was actually in the mailbox. What do we think? Does it go this way? Or does it go the other way?
I think it goes like that. But oh, you guys want to see it too? Oh, I'm sorry. How about that? How about that, you guys? Let us know in the comments below.
Is it too dark? Does it need more color?
If you've ever lived in a really old house that hasn't been restored, or maybe an old apartment in the city somewhere, you've probably seen door hardware that's old like this and painted over. Here we are doing a restoration, and a lot of you have asked, how are you going to do that? And some people have even offered some good suggestions. Now, before we get into that, let me show you what this thing is supposed to look like. When we took this thing off the door, this is what we found on the back side of it. Isn't that beautiful? That's completely unrestored back there. And that's what we're going to try to achieve. We received a lot of suggestions from you guys, and we really appreciate that. We really appreciate the feedback and the interactions that we have with you. But we had some ranging from chemical strippers to throwing it in a pot and boiling it. What we've decided is that heat is probably the best way to get this off. Chemicals could damage the metal. Boiling it would probably damage the metal too, because you're immersing it in water and you can start rust that way, and that's probably not great. But the essence there is actually the heat. To get the heat into the paint, to break that bond, just like we've been doing before. So here's what we're going to try. We have the speed heater and an old toothbrush. And so what I'm going to do is start to warm this thing up. Because this is metal, it's going to take a little longer than normal. I'm sure you can guess by now what we're going to do. Will it work? We don't know, but let's find out together. We don't claim to always have the answers. But whatever we do, whether it works or doesn't work, we're doing it together and we're learning together, and that's what's important. I'm waving it around so that I can spread the heat better. Okay, I'm starting to see a little bit of paint bubbling going on there. That's good. Let's see what we got. Well, so far what we seem to be getting is that the brush just kind of pushes it back down and doesn't really pull it up. So, what does that mean? Maybe we need something a little bit stiffer just to kind of break it open. So I'm going to take this screwdriver here and see if I can just gently get the paint to open up a bit. Okay, so I've got the paint open. Let's see if I can scrape that off with the brush. Well, we are smoking the paint and the brush doesn't seem to be doing a thing. All right, so I'm going to call that one a fail. We'll find something else to do. Okay, now we've determined that heat doesn't work on the metal parts. We can't use the scraper, so that's obviously not going to work, and the toothbrush isn't aggressive enough. By the time we get something that's aggressive enough to take the paint off, it's going to harm the metal finish too. We don't want to do that. So what do? I have another experiment going right now. Take a look at this. We've seen some recommendations that say boil it in water, and we don't want to boil it in water because water is corrosive to metal, and we certainly didn't want to do that. So what I did is I took my bowl here and I put a little bit of denatured alcohol in there, which doesn't harm metal, and let it soak for about an hour. So let's take it out here and see what we've got going. It right now is looking like that may just have done the trick. Oh, yeah, look at that. So that's our solution. Soak the part in denatured alcohol and then scrub it clean. So that is going to work really nice. As you can see, one method of paint stripping doesn't work for all situations. Obviously, you can't do this to wood, but you can't use the wood method on the metal. So we'll use what we can. I'm just very gently scraping that. So this hinge here looks like it's a copper hinge. And look at that old patina. For some reason that little corner there must not have gotten wet properly. Okay, I'm just doing a little bit of detail work here on this hinge. We have little bits of paint that for whatever reason didn't come off. So I'm just trying to just gently pop them off with a metal edge here. I don't want to scrape the metal, but I want to just pop the paint out. Then I can get the rag wet and just take some of this excess residue off of here. So now what I have is a beautiful Victorian hinge. All right, the other half of the door hinges are still on the frame. So I'm going to get up here and start taking these out. There we go. There it is. And what do we have here? There's some kind of paper. Why is there paper on our hinge? I'm not sure what that's all about. Several of you have been asking recently about my job update. And as you know, I was unemployed for about 6 months and kept trying to find a job. And I kept applying for high-profile jobs that I was qualified for and kept coming in at second place, third place, but I could never land that job. And so I decided to go ahead and try something different. And it's really opened up a door that I never expected to open. And here's what happened. I went to a job fair that Lockheed Martin was holding. Now, Lockheed Martin is a company that's been around for a long time in different forms, but they're a military contractor. And they're responsible for the P-38 Lightning, the Lockheed Electra, F-16s, F-15s, F-22s, F-35s, and a whole range of other products that serve the military. And to my surprise, they offered me a job. I went back to work serving Lockheed Martin on July 25th, and I've been there ever since. And it's been a really amazing experience to be immersed in all that they do. And it's a huge honor to be involved in the F-16 program. And my daily work involves construction of brand new F-16 jets. So it's quite a switch from what I was doing before, but I'm proud to be involved in that. But it has opened up an interesting opportunity in that I have an opportunity to go back to college as a benefit of working there. And I have an associate's degree in electronics, which I've had for years, more years than I care to admit. But I never did go back and finish up to get the bachelor's degree. And so now that I have an opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to go back to college and get myself a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and take it all the way. And so that's what we're going to do. And it's going to change the channel just a little bit. I won't have quite as much time to work on it, but we're going to keep this thing going and try to keep it moving as fast as we possibly can. And that leads us to something else. For the past couple of years, we've been restoring old houses, and old faithful Minnie here has been with us the whole time. It's also the only car we have, and that poses a problem for us because if I'm going to school and working full-time, that means I'm going to be gone all the time, and that's a problem for Jeannie. Also, it's been really tough trying to do restoration sometimes with a little car like this. I mean, we can fit a couple of 2x4s in here, believe it or not, but there are times where we have to have stuff delivered and we have to pay for delivery charges, and that adds up, and we'd rather spend that money on materials and other things that are more important. So in light of all that, we picked up this 3-year-old Ram pickup, and we chose the 2500 heavy duty with a Cummins turbo diesel. Now, the reason we chose that combination is because when we haul stuff, sometimes we haul stuff that's pretty heavy, and the heavy duty chassis is going to take care of that with no problems. We've worn out smaller trucks in the past that just weren't built for what we were trying to do, and we just are getting tired of wearing them out. So heavy duty suspension, heavy duty chassis and steering is definitely a plus, but most compelling is the Cummins turbo diesel. And the reason is, the Cummins turbo diesel will get you, if the thing is well maintained and the oil changes are done, will get you 1 million miles. Yeah, that's right, I didn't make that up. It is a 1 million mile engine. And if the truck itself is cared for equally well, this thing will take us to probably more miles than we'll ever use. So that's a big factor there. The gasoline engines, they do wear out, but for some reason the diesels, they're built better, stronger, and they do tend to get better mileage too. So that's a big plus in this day of high fuel costs. So all things together, we chose that combination. But we also chose one that's a few years old, because when you buy a new car, the minute you drive it off the lot, there's something called depreciation, and you lose a big chunk of value the minute you drive away, right? But if you get something that's 2, 3, 4 years old, that depreciation is gone, and what's left is the true value of the truck. And so that way we didn't lose value on the depreciation. So now from here on out, it'll hold its value. So that's another thing, and probably the other more compelling reason, it's a whole lot cheaper than buying a new one. So that said, we now have the capability of hauling lumber, bricks, debris, anything that we need to move in and out of here, we can do easily. Now, this truck was priced below market value, and that's probably what attracted us to it, was the combination of low miles, low price, and being well equipped. This thing also has 4-wheel drive, and that, that's a pretty valuable thing. But we went and looked at it, and we quickly found out why it was priced below market value. And we had to decide whether these were deal breakers or not. But let me show you the first one. So the first thing that we found was this truck has killed a deer. You can still see the deer hair. This is bent, that's dented, and the plastic is all pushed back in and cracked. Fortunately, it didn't do anything to the radiators. But it's a cosmetic issue, and is it a big deal? Well, maybe, maybe not. But the thing is, for about $300 to $500, I can get a brand new bumper here and replace that, and it'll look just as good as new. Another thing, Jeannie actually found this, is right here, the paint has been kind of ground off down to bare metal, and I don't know what was going on, but it goes all the way around to here, and maybe the wheel picked up something and just kind of hurled it and just kind of ground the paint off until it finally kicked off out of there. But that's something that does need to be addressed, and I don't know how difficult that is or how expensive it is. It seems like maybe the worst case scenario would be that the entire fender would have to be resprayed. But is it a deal breaker? No, probably not. Here's another thing. On the tailgate, you can see where it's scuffed, and this part here is dented, and this is lifted up a little bit. So clearly something was either dropped on this, or maybe the tailgate was down and the previous owner might have backed into something. Hard to say. Is it a deal breaker? Probably not. The interior is immaculate, except for a couple things. There's a small hole in the driver's seat, and can that be fixed? Yes. They actually do have replacement seat cushions that could be put in there to fix that. Is it a deal breaker? Probably not. And finally, the last problem that we encountered is the strong smell of cigarette smoke in here, because the original owner was a smoker, and so that could have been a deal breaker. And I asked Jeannie about that. Is that going to be a problem for her? And she was able to kind of sniff it and say, no, it wasn't. And so we decided that that would be okay, because that can be fixed too. There are deodorizing techniques that can be used to get rid of that smell, and we will definitely be doing that. If anybody knows of something that works that you've done in the past, please let us know in the comments. I took my list of objections to the salesman and asked for a price concession, which he then forwarded to his manager. His manager came out, thanked us for coming, and said that he would give us a price concession, not as much as we wanted, but he would give us a price concession on this. And so that was nice that they were willing to do that. So my apologies to all the Ford and Chevy enthusiasts out there. This is the truck that we'll be using going forward, and you'll be seeing it more on this channel. Well, we're back upstairs again, and here's a hinge that's been soaking in alcohol for probably too many hours. But let's see what we can do with this. That part's cleaning up nice. Some of the paint seems to be stuck on there a little more than I would like. I'm not sure what exactly is going on with that. So it seems that alcohol will take care of latex paint with no problem, but it doesn't seem to want to touch the oil-based paint that's under it. So we'll have to try a different approach on that. Okay, I've got the two hinge pins, and I've submerged them in denatured alcohol, and I'm just going to go ahead and prop that up. Let's see if I can get it to stay put. Okay, everything is propped in. I added a little more alcohol just to make sure they're submerged. I'm going to go ahead and let that sit for about 15 minutes, and we'll see how it looks. While the door is in its raw state, and before we've done any more work to it, I want to find out if this door is square or not. So I've got a square here. This is Jeannie's drawing square. We should have a carpenter square, but we can't find it. So I'm going to lay this on here like that, and I want to see how it looks down the line here. And I can tell you that this door is square. Now let's measure the top side. Yeah, that looks really good. So this door is in great shape. Since we're detailing the door, you'll notice this section right here is a little bit darker, and that is because when I was stripping the wood, I accidentally left the speed heater on there just a little bit too long, and I scorched the wood. Well, I probably left it on there a lot too long, but I think that this might fix it. So this is super fine 800 grit paper. The goal here is not to scrape out the wood, but the goal is just to lift off and cut down through that layer that's just a little bit scorched. And so I've got to go real slow and easy with this. That does look a little better. So the goal here is not to get rid of the patina, but just to take off just that little bit of discoloration that we kind of induced into it by being a little too hot. Okay. Now you'll notice that the blackness is pretty much gone, but now it has a kind of a weird gray haze. Let me show you how to fix that. I'm just taking a alcohol-soaked rag here and just wiping it down. So there we go. I mean, what was blackened is now not blackened. Whenever we strip wood like this, there are usually little bits of paint in the cracks that get in there, and there's no way we can get them out completely. So I have a method here which I'm using a dry erase brown marker with a superfine tip, and I'm just going to go right in here in the corner like that, and then just kind of going to blend it in a little bit and try to conceal that as much as possible. So see, a dark brown is not quite as visible as the white paint. Let's see how this turned out. I can see the paint's kind of bubbling up. It looks like it's trying to come off, but it's having a little trouble. Let's see if I can just break that open a little bit better. There we go. There we go. You just need a little bit of help. This feels like it might be oil-based paint, because the latex usually just turns to rubber and peels off. This is taking a little more effort. Well, here it is, all cleaned up. Now I discovered this thing is solid copper. So I could either polish it and make it super bright, shiny copper, or I could leave the 122-year-old patina, which is what I think I'll do. Here's the door latch that we pulled off. It has paint on there, and we've already showed you the back side, which is exactly the same as the front side, except that this appears to have some kind of old shellac on there, and there's pieces where it's chipped off. So I think what the best thing to do is follow the approach of what we've been doing and soak this and try to get that paint off using denatured alcohol. So I think the only thing holding this together at this point is probably just the shellac. So I'm going to just pop this in here and see if I can, yeah, there we go. Yep, just as I suspected, paint is the only thing holding it together. My dad always used to say that house is only staying together because the paint's holding it up. Well, in this case, it was the paint holding the latch. I've got the parts opened up, and I think the best thing to do, and I highly recommend this for you guys if you ever attempt this, take a picture of it, and that way you'll know how it goes back together. After I opened this up, I found a couple of parts rattling around inside here loose. This plunger and this spring right here were just laying in the bottom, rattling around, and I don't know if this is part of the lock mechanism, but a lot of these old locks, they had keyholes in them, and you would stick a skeleton key in there and you could snap it locked or unlocked. And the fact that this is just laying in there loose makes me wonder what exactly was going on here. But we'll diagnose this later. Right now I want to get this taken apart and get it cleaned up. That piece is stuck in there because of paint. There we go. It's really remarkable what the old engineers could come up with, given a little time and ingenuity. And this is why we take pictures of things before we take them apart. Okay, now we have a pile of parts and the frame. So we'll take these two pieces and we'll get them cleaned up. We found an old canister, and I'm going to use this as a tank. So I'm putting in just enough to cover that. Okay, I'm going to put the cover on here to stop evaporation, and then we'll let this sit for a while and see what happens. Enough time has passed here. I think we can go ahead and pull it open. Looks like the alcohol is discolored. Let's have a look and see what we got. We're really only looking at the edges on this one. Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely coming off of there. So I'm just using this old toothbrush, and it is coming off. I do wonder if maybe I should be using a Scotch-Brite pad. That might kind of amplify the effort just a little bit. Let's give that a try. Oh yeah, yeah, that's much better. That takes it off with hardly any trouble at all. So good. Look at all that come off of there. Now I'm being careful not to try to scrub the metal, but just knock the paint off. I noticed a couple of things while I was working on this. The dark finish on the backside is actually being dissolved by the denatured alcohol, and that confirms my suspicion that this was indeed shellac on here. And it just so happens we have some dark shellac that we can refinish this with. There's a weird raised bump right here, and I got to looking at it and discovered that at one point this whole piece had broken out, and it looks like somebody tried to glue it back in with super glue. We're running out of time to film this weekend, so we're going to have to wrap this up in a minute. But I brought you back out here because I want to show you the great magnolia tree. This tree here is enormous, puts on an incredible show of flowers every year, and is probably as old, if not older, than the house itself. And we featured it on several of our videos. But we had an idea this year. This thing puts out seed pods. You can see these beautiful bright red seeds here, and it just comes in abundance. And every year, the squirrels come, they attack this tree, and they eat every single seed pod that we have. But I got to thinking, this is an incredible tree, and I'd like to try and see if we can save some of those seeds and make them available to you guys, because I know some of you have property, and maybe some of you would be interested in growing the progeny of the great magnolia in your own yards. And so we're going to collect those seeds, and we'll store them over the winter, and then we'll revisit this in the spring. So let us know what you think about that. I want to be clear though, a tree this size is not for the average suburban homeowner. Now, bear in mind, this tree is well over 100 years old, and this is how big it gets. So if you're interested in doing something like this, make sure you've got enough land to support a tree this size, or be prepared to cut it and prune it on a regular basis, because they will grow fairly large. But to get this big takes a much longer time than you or I will probably be alive. Well, that's about it for this week. We've run out of time and have to get on to doing some other things, but thank you so much for stopping by our old Victorian and spending a few minutes with us. We really appreciate you. It's like having over 11,000 friends, and it's just been a great experience getting to know all of you.
Yes, thank you for watching 1834 Restoration House. If you like this, please subscribe, hit the like, and do leave comments. We love comments.